What if I told you that everything you're experiencing right now, every sensation, every memory, every person you've ever met, might not be real? What if you're actually a character in an incredibly sophisticated video game and you don't even know it? Before you click away thinking this is just science fiction nonsense, consider this. Some of the world's smartest philosophers and scientists take this idea seriously. Really seriously. We're talking about people at Oxford, MIT, and even tech billionaires like Elon Musk, who stated he thinks there's only a 1 in billions chance we're living in base reality. Today we're diving deep into one of the most mind-bending questions in modern philosophy, the simulation argument. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll never look at reality quite the same way again. Let's start with the basics. The simulation argument isn't actually arguing that we definitely live in a simulation. Instead, it's presenting a logical trilemma. A three-way fork in the road where we have to pick one option, and all three options are pretty wild. The argument was formalized in 2003 by philosopher Nick Bostrom from Oxford University. Here's what he proposed. At least one of these three statements must be true. First option: civilizations like ours almost always go extinct before they become technologically advanced enough to create realistic simulations of consciousness. Maybe we nuke ourselves. Maybe climate change gets us. Maybe artificial intelligence goes rogue. Whatever the reason, we never make it to that advanced stage. Second option: advanced civilizations could create these simulations, but they choose not to. Maybe it's unethical, maybe it's boring, maybe they have better things to do. For whatever reason, they just don't run ancestor simulations of their evolutionary history. Third option: we are almost certainly living in a simulation right now. Because if civilizations do survive and they do run these simulations, they'd run countless trillions of them. And if there are trillions of simulated realities and only one base reality, well, do the math. The odds that you're in the one real universe become astronomically small. So those are your choices: extinction, disinterest, or simulation. Pick your poison. Now, if you want to dive deeper into mind-bending questions like this, check the description to download our ebook, Philosophy for Busy People, which explores big ideas like the simulation argument in an easy-to-read format. It's perfect for when you want to explore these concepts further without getting lost in academic jargon. You might be thinking, okay, this sounds like The Matrix, and you're not wrong. The Matrix is basically a Hollywood version of this idea. But here's why the simulation argument is taken seriously in academic circles. It's based on reasonable extrapolations of technology we already have. Think about video games for a second. In the 1970s, we had Pong, 2 lines and a dot. That was cutting edge. 50 years later, we have photorealistic open-world games where you can see individual blades of grass move in the wind. We have virtual reality that can trick your brain into thinking you're somewhere else entirely. Now, imagine another 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years. If we don't destroy ourselves, where does this technology go? It's not unreasonable to think we might eventually create simulations so sophisticated that the beings inside them have conscious experiences. Think, they feel, they believe they're real. Computer scientist and entrepreneur Elon Musk put it this way: video games are improving at an incredible rate. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, the games will eventually become indistinguishable from reality. And if that happens, and we create even just a handful of these simulations, there would be billions or trillions of simulated beings for every real person. The math is actually pretty simple. If each advanced civilization runs even just 1,000 detailed simulations of their history, that's 1,000 simulated realities for every base reality. Your chances of being in the real one? 1 in 1,001? That's a conservative estimate. This isn't just a fun thought experiment. The simulation argument carries some serious philosophical weight. Let's unpack why. First, it connects to something philosophers have worried about for centuries: the problem of external reality. How do we know the world outside our minds actually exists the way we perceive it? René Descartes, back in the 1600s, imagined an evil demon that could be deceiving him about everything. He could only be certain of one thing: that he was thinking. Hence his famous line, "I think, therefore I am." The simulation argument is basically Descartes' demon with a computer science degree. If we're in a simulation, our perceptions could be completely manufactured. That tree outside your window? Just code. Your memories of childhood? implanted data, the entire history of the universe. A backstory programmed in. Second, it raises questions about consciousness itself. If we could create a simulation sophisticated enough to generate conscious beings, what does that tell us about consciousness? Is it just information processing? Can you upload a mind to a computer? These aren't just philosophical puzzles anymore. They're questions that researchers in neuroscience and artificial intelligence are actively grappling with. And third, it has implications for meaning and ethics. If we are in a simulation, does life still have meaning? Do our choices still matter? Should we behave differently if we suspect we're simulated? Some people find this terrifying. Others find it oddly liberating. Now here's where things get really interesting. Are there any actual clues that we might be in a simulation? Some researchers think there might be. Physicist James Gates discovered something strange while studying the deep mathematics of string theory and supersymmetry. Buried in the equations, he found error-correcting codes, the same kind of codes used in computers and browsers to protect data. Why would the fabric of reality contain computer code? It's not proof of anything, but it's certainly odd. Others point to the quantized nature of reality. You can't have half an electron. Energy comes in discrete packets called quanta. The universe seems to have a resolution limit, kind of like how a video game has pixels. You can zoom in on a TV screen only so far before you start seeing the individual dots. Maybe the Planck length, the smallest possible meaningful distance in physics, is the universe's pixel size. Then there's the fine-tuning problem. Constants of physics, things like the strength of gravity or the charge of an electron, are precisely calibrated to allow for complex structures like stars, planets, and life. Change any of these values by even a tiny fraction, and the universe becomes sterile and lifeless. Why is everything so perfectly balanced? One answer. Maybe someone adjusted the settings. Maybe reality is running on finely tuned parameters because someone programmed it that way. Some physicists have even proposed experiments to detect whether we're in a simulation. The idea is that simulations might have computational limits that could create detectable anomalies, kind of like glitches in a video game. Though so far we haven't found any definitive glitches in the Matrix. Of course, not everyone buys the simulation argument. Let's look at some of the main objections. First, there's the consciousness problem. Critics argue that we have no idea if consciousness can actually be simulated. Sure, we might create something that behaves like it's conscious, but would it actually have subjective experiences? Would there be something it's like to be that simulated being? This is called the hard problem of consciousness, and we're nowhere close to solving it. If consciousness requires something more than just computation, then the entire simulation argument might be based on a false assumption. Second, there's the computational argument. Some scientists argue that simulating an entire universe down to the quantum level would require more computational resources than exist in the universe itself. It would be like trying to fit an ocean into a teacup. To create a perfect simulation of our universe, you'd need a computer bigger and more complex than our universe. That seems impossible. However, defenders of the simulation argument have a response. You don't need to simulate everything, just simulate what's being observed. When you're playing a video game, the computer doesn't render the entire game world all at once. It only renders what's on your screen. Maybe reality works the same way. It actually connects to something weird in quantum mechanics. Particles don't seem to have definite properties until they're measured. It's almost like reality is rendering things only when someone looks. Third, there's the motivation problem. Why would an advanced civilization spend enormous resources simulating their ancestors? What's the point? This relates to Bostrom's second option in his trilemma. Maybe advanced civilizations just don't care about running these simulations. Maybe it's considered unethical, like we might consider breeding conscious beings just to experiment on them. And finally, some philosophers argue the whole thing is unfalsifiable. If we can't design an experiment that could prove we're not in a simulation, then it's not really science, it's just speculation. It's metaphysics dressed up in computational clothing. Let's play with the idea for a moment. What if we actually are living in a simulation? What would that mean? For some people, it's actually kind of comforting. If we're in a simulation, maybe death isn't the end. Maybe when you die in the simulation, you wake up somewhere else, or get reincarnated, or respawn, like in a video game. Maybe the afterlife is just the next level. It could also explain some of the mysteries of existence. Why is there something rather than nothing? Because someone hit the start button. Why do the laws of physics exist? Because they're the rules of the game. Why does mathematics describe reality so perfectly? Because reality is mathematical at its core, written in code. Some transhumanists find the simulation argument exciting because it suggests consciousness is substrate independent. If we're conscious, simulated beings, then consciousness doesn't require biological brains. That means we could potentially upload ourselves to computers, achieve digital immortality, or transfer between different simulated worlds. On the flip side, it raises disturbing questions. If we're in a simulation, could it be shut off at any moment? Are we just entertainment for some higher beings? We have free will, or are our choices predetermined by the code? Are we ethically obligated to treat our own simulations, our video game characters, and artificial intelligences as conscious beings deserving of rights? Here's the thing about the simulation argument. We might never know the answer, and maybe that's okay. Philosopher David Chalmers argues that even if we are in a simulation, it doesn't really change much. The things we care about, love, friendship, beauty, truth, justice, they're still real within our frame of reference. If you're hungry, it doesn't matter if your hunger is simulated. It still feels real to you. Your relationships still matter. Your choices still have consequences within the world you inhabit. In fact, Chalmers suggests that if we're in a simulation, the simulation is our reality. The computer running the simulation would be the physical world, and we'd be having genuine physical experiences within it. We wouldn't be in a fake world. We'd be in a real world that happens to be computational in nature. This connects to a broader philosophical insight. Reality is what we can observe, measure, and interact with. Whether there's some deeper layer beneath it all, whether it's computer code or quantum fields or Plato's forms, might not matter as much as we think. So are we living in a giant video game? The honest answer is, we don't know, and we might never know for sure. But the simulation argument isn't really about providing an answer, but asking better questions. Questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, technology, and existence itself. It challenges us to think carefully about assumptions we usually take for granted. Nick Bostrom's trilemma forces us to confront uncomfortable possibilities. Either we're headed for extinction, or we'll choose not to create simulated worlds despite being able to, or we're already living in one. None of these options is particularly comforting, but one of them is likely true. Maybe the most important takeaway isn't whether we're in a simulation, but how we respond to uncertainty. Do we find it paralyzing or liberating? Does it make life feel meaningless, or does it inspire wonder? Does it make you want to give up, or does it make you curious to explore further? Personally, I find something beautiful in the idea that we might be part of something larger and stranger than we ever imagined. Whether we're in a simulation or not, we're conscious beings capable of asking these questions in the first place. We can contemplate the nature of our own existence. It's pretty remarkable, simulated or not. So here's my challenge to you. Live as if your choices matter, because within your frame of reference, they do.
Ow.
Treat other conscious beings with kindness, because their experiences are as real to them as yours are to you. And stay curious about the deep questions, because the search for understanding is one of the things that makes us human, or at least makes us whatever we are. What do you think? Are we in a simulation? Which of Bostrom's 3 options do you find most plausible? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this video bent your mind in interesting ways, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into philosophy's biggest questions. Thanks for watching, and remember, whether this is base reality or level 1 of an infinite regressive simulations, you're here now. Make it count.